Okay, today we're in the garden because I thought it'd be nice to have a go at the washing line. As you do, you're so busy hanging the washing out, so why not paint it? And the sun is glorious today, so it'll give us lots of light and shade on the garments. In fact, there's a little bit of a breeze, but not much. But to give the clothes some sort of movement, because they're moving in the breeze, I'm going to draw with a wax crayon. I've got some children's wax crayons here, left over from when my children were young, and now I have grandchildren, so they will be using them at some point, I'm sure. And this will act as a resist to the watercolour, but also you can't rub it out, and any marks left will just stay on the page and give this sort of impression of movement. Detail. I'm going to start centrally and move out. So primarily trying to get everything drawn in. So make lots of lines. It really doesn't matter. So it will give you the impression of movement. I guess when you actually get down to doing this, it depends on how much breeze you've got, but I suggest you set up your own line with perhaps some familiar clothing or tea towels, socks, anything you like. Now, I've already run out of space for my socks, so that was my fault. I'm not too worried. I might put them in elsewhere. In fact, I could just hang them here. So I've just moved them in my mind's eye, and they're stuck together with one peg, as you do when you slowly run out of. Now the arms of the sleeves of this long sleeve shirt is about the same, if not a little bit shorter than the actual trousers that I've got hanging here, the jeans. So I've got to have some sort of movement in all of them, otherwise it's going to look a little odd if some are very static and some are actually moving. And then we've got just room for a dress. There's a bit of everything here, something stripy, something colourful, something mundane, but of course everything's going to have folds because they're fabric. And this has got a bit of lace at the bottom, and it's got some stripes in, but I can come in and do the stripes with the paint. So there's my washing line right across the page. I'm not too worried about what's behind it at the moment. Okay, let's paint. I'm just going to choose some colours that would work well with what's in front of me. I've got a lime green shirt, navy blue trousers, some coral pink on the dress, that can also some pinks coming in here with black, and some pinks on the pants, and again some blue. So there's scattering of colour throughout. So my first layer is going to be very pale and slightly washy, a bit in a blush form. I'm going to pick up lemon yellow, which will give me my lime green if I'm to mix it with Prussian blue. So let's pick up Prussian blue and make a pale lime green. Oops, that's a bit too green, so add a little more yellow, and very softly, as loosely as you did the drawing with the wax crayon, softly coat that long sleeve vest. And there's only one green here, and you know, if there are a few dots that come adrift on the page, leave them. Give it that sense of freedom. In fact, some of the pegs are lime green, so that's going to help move the colour from the shirt along the clothesline so that the eye will travel. So let's pick up some soft jean blue, which in this case I've chosen Prussian blue, but it really doesn't matter, you can choose other colours. Of course it depends on what you've chosen to put on your line, or you might decide to be brave and just choose whatever happens to be hanging out that day that you decide to sit down and have a go. Again, it's very loose, my brush is very wet. It's starting to look like flares, they're not flares actually. And then there's a bit more blue, so while I've got blue on the brush, I'm going to come in elsewhere. There's a label on this tea towel called Opera, and in fact the tea towel is white and it has some of these stripes around it, so follow the contours of the drawing that you've actually started making. That will make the whole thing flex and shift as if it's moving in the wind or the breeze like it is today. I can hear it coming now, so it's going to move everything again, and of course the sun's moving too. So now I'm going to pick up my third primary colour actually, which is going to be red. I'm going to go for Windsor red, something very strong, and if I mix that with a tiny bit of yellow, I will get a coral colour, which this dress is sort of coral red. Now this is all folding, so it's not in a straight line. Again, I've got to watch the contours of the dress on the line. If necessary, make the coral very lemony. In places, so it really lifts the light. Here we go. And then there's another, it's actually a diagonal stripe on this dress, one of my favourite sundresses. And then lower down, let's do that bit, and then slightly higher up, another diagonal. And it sort of sits behind those jeans when the wind isn't blowing. In the middle there's a bit of buff or beige colour. You can mix the coral that you have with some of the green that you've made and create the beige colour very quickly. So it doesn't need too much effort, and they're all very loose, in order to get this sense of movement. And there's some stripes on here. Here we go. Stripy tea towel. Quite an old one actually, but still does the job. And I hope you can hear the birds. Since lockdown we don't have planes, but we have lots of birds up here on Leith Hill. So it's an absolute pleasure. Not drowned out by anything else. Famous last words. And I can hear the frog. Can you hear the frog? Got loads of frog spawn in the pond. So there's a bit of pink on the pants here. Gotta have pants, haven't you? And the socks are quite black and stripy, so I'm going to put the stripes in first, so I don't lose my way, and then I'll come in with the black afterwards. And there's one white thing hanging down here, I'm not quite sure what that is. So while the clothes are drying, I'm going to make a black, and I do this by mixing the three colours that I've chosen. So it's Prussian blue, a tiny bit of yellow and the red. And then keep going until you get a really interesting dark. So this one's quite reasonable. So I'm going to put in the green shirt still drying. I'm going to come in and put the lightest tones of black. So we've got a pattern on the pants and some stripes coming in here, every other one. Like that. So it's a pale black made with the 3 primary colours. Like that. And then of course these socks, which are predominantly black, but black still has a light tone and a dark tone. So it's important to portray that, otherwise you cannot show form. It's all a bit of a model at the moment, but I'll come back to it. I'm just trying to be careful not to sink my heel of my hand into the rest of the painting, which is still drying. In fact, the trousers are dry, everything except black areas and the lime green shirt. So let's move on and enrich those colours. Now, these first layers of tone is your lightest tone. You're going to have to leave the tone really light if you want to create strong sunlight, because the sun really does bleach out those colours. So now I'm going to enrich the tones that are not necessarily kissed by sunlight. So let's come into the jeans. Do the jeans first. So I'm going to strengthen the blues in the shade. So I call this my sort of middle tone, because although it's going on very dark, it's going to dry 30% lighter. So again, you don't want to spend hours doing this, because of course the earth is moving and will make the shadows move. On a day like today, which is absolutely stunningly beautiful, just a shame we can't all get out because of the lockdown, but still, if you can have a go at this, hopefully it'll lift your spirits and feel you've achieved something. Certainly it's making me do something by running these tutorials for you. So all I'm doing is really looking at the piece of the garment in front of me, hanging on the line, which is now dead still, because the wind's dropped again. And it's just turning up the bottom here. I'm working fairly quickly, and I'm going to rinse my brush, sort of dry it off, and come in and soften some of these marks, because I do want to suggest the fabric, and therefore they're folded, and the folds are often soft. But equally, it's strong sunlight, and we want some strong shadows. But we'll do this by putting in the third layer of increased tone where the shadows are really dark. In fact, that's dried off already down here, so you have to work quite quickly to get some sort of softness. dropping everything off the table. I'm going to come in with just neat pigment now, no more water. So I'm just going to drop some sneaky bits of extra Prussian blue in here, just while the paper and the pigment's still wet. Just a few really dark bits. If you're not happy doing it this way, then let the layer dry and then come in and darken your areas that way. But while it's damp, I'm not putting any more water on the brush. I'm purely adding neat pigment. It's quite dark in here, and because of that it's softly blending with the middle tones. And there's some shadow cast by this one actually that I haven't done yet. The tea towel is now casting a shadow. Let's do that. Okay. And so you can see this hard line, damp brush, clean it off, come down the dry side in order to loosen up that mark. Every so often, give your palette a wipe out. Check the water in your pot is as clean as it can be in order to keep your watercolours fresh. I'm now going to come in and enrich some of the colours on the dress. So make a richer, darker colour with a sort of orangey, and come in again doing the shadows. Just enrich the colours, and then comes again down here. Inside the neck there, and then inside the arm hole here, and it also is a little bit down here. And there's my dog barking at a delivery man, no doubt. Okay, rinse the brush, damp the brush off, and go down the edge on the dry side of these marks. Oops. Then we've got to go straight into the beige. Everything's going on now. Let's do that. Okay, let's come on to the lime green sweater. So I'm coming in again, enriching the colours in the shady areas. My favourite colour of the moment, lime green. Reminds me of spring. I always think spring is an optimistic time of year. I think we've got to stay optimistic, especially this time. All of that is in shadow, so I can enrich the colours. This is in shadow partially, another fold here. Again, soften a little if you wish. Okay, let's come in and make some stronger darks. To portray shadow, the darker the darks, the brighter the sunlight will appear. I'll start with the jeans again. You may think, how on earth am I going to make those darker? But I'm going to introduce a little red into my mix. And this will make my blue darker. It will also reflect some of that dress, which is also makes it a little more interesting. And a little bit more detail coming in around here. Looks like it's not quite dry, but never mind, too late now. Let's define the pockets a little bit. In fact, the insides have come out of that pocket, that's why I've left it quite pale. And that's round here. A little bit of dark here, and you can see that's real dark. Really dark in here. It's just no sunlight getting to it whatsoever. If you've got a really fine tip to your brush, you can use the tip to draw with. And then this bit at the end. You can see there's very strong darks coming in here. In fact, the jeans were in front of the dress, and now they've flipped behind, so that's just the way it goes. So I'm just going to have to keep to what I've started drawing. A few extra shadows appearing here and there. But the main thing is to try to create strong contrast. So I've left those marks a little harder. The second layer with the medium tone enrichment, what I call the enrichment colours, I soften them off, but this last layer I'm going to keep quite stark. In fact, there's something weird going on here, so let's just come in down the back there. That's fine. And then if we can turn to the dress, we're dealing with orange. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of blue into it to create some real darks. On the dress. And I'm going to run all the way down this time. So there's a little bit more continuity with the shadows. With a shadow to the left of the peg. A little bit of shadow in here where the two garments meet. I'm just going to highlight the bottom of that armpit. I'm just going to touch in also a little bit more blue here and there. Of course, blue and orange are complementary, but there's a big danger that it goes a bit browny. But I think at the end of the day, this is an exercise, so I'm just trying to get the darks Let's take that off, it doesn't look right. And that was quite a soft shadow in the middle, so I'm going to leave that. Up here, a little bit up here. Okay, let's move on to the socks, which was a black. So again, the three primary colours work together until you get a really good dark. It could be a yellow dark, it could be a red dark. And then come in the shady part of the sock. And there's one behind that's really in the dark, so I've got to make that really super dark. Not terribly clear. Let's draw them back in. And the tea towel. Again, it's quite hard to work out exactly where all these shadows are. But just try and make them float. And then I'm going to come in with some red, sort of more of a purpley mix, and create some stronger shadows. On the tea towel, so that it looks as if it's looks as if it makes sense. Hopefully it does. And I'm going to do the lime green top. So again, lime green in. So I haven't deviated from any of the colours that I started with. And Prussian blue does enable you to get some really rich darks. Again, green could have a little red thrown in to the dark just to liven it up. And that would reflect a little from the tea towel and link up those two items. Neckline there. Lemon yellows. I prefer to use Windsor lemon. It's lovely and transparent and clean. Now, sometimes you've got your favourite colours and tend to stick with them. That's absolutely fine. And a little bit of red in here. Just livens up those greens. Touch in there. Okay, and then the pants are sort of done actually. I've got enough shadow on them. So this tea towel, it's white, so I'm going to bring in a purpley mix to create some shadows. And even the pegs cast a shadow. And you really look at this in front of you. Lots of creases in there, so I'm going to... It's scrunched up in the machine, I think. Whoops. Sometimes you get to the point in a drawing or a painting where you've done as much as you want to do with paint, but there's nothing to say you can't just go straight back in with coloured crayons or back in with the wax crayon. I've actually got some neo colour in the same colour as the blue wax crayon I used earlier, and this time you can see that actually the wax crayon hasn't acted much as a resist in the overall scheme of things, so that's fine. But this will be a lot softer and a lot stronger, so I'm going to come in and try and make this a little more exciting than it is. Well, let's hope so anyway. So I'm going to give it a bit of punch, bit of energy with the light. Let's draw around the pegs. They can be wonky, they don't have to be in a straight line. Of course, they always are wonky. Some are leaning forward, some are leaning up. That's a bit of a fat peg, but never mind. And then let's restructure this, come round. You don't even do much. You don't have to do this at all. But these pants have grown bigger and bigger. It's up in So go with the flow of the garments, feel the garments. This is quite good for outlining the socks, which I seem to have lost. So sort of restructuring things. Of course you can come in with your pen and ink, if that's what you want to do. But I just find this sort of loose sketchiness makes everything move even more. Unlike animals, you know, these things are on the move all the time with the little breeze. Now this blue on this lovely red dress is going to look really quite striking. A hint of it on the folds, but mainly it's I haven't done the tea towel. Of course this neo colour is water soluble, but actually I quite like the drawing nature of this crayon. Now I've got so excited about these colours that I've gone and got my whole set from the studio. So I'm going to pick up bright red, actually tell a lie, I'm going to pick up bright orangey red, and then I'm going to come in and really lift this tea towel forward. Really swinging forward here, and you can see that leap forward. A bit of red with the green. It's complementary colours. Will help liven up that part. The pants, well, the pants, yep, the pants. Let's come back to the dress and lift some of the colours again that I seem to have lost. In fact, there's a bit of a lacy fringe to the dress, which I didn't really do. Let's stick it in. And then you say, well, what about the blue? What am I going to do there? In fact, I've gone over with red, so I'm going to bring in a tiny bit of blue. A tiny bit of the red. Just a hint here and there. And the socks, of course, are stripy. So that can be a little red. Oh, I'm getting excited about these colours. Oh, we've got lime green here as well. So worry not. If your watercolour is looking a little flat, a little uninteresting. You put a bit of green next to this orange and this red, you suddenly liven it up like that. Maybe the pegs could have a few more blobs then. A little bit of green in the middle here and a little bit of green at the end. You're just working the colours to your benefit. It sort of livened it up a bit. I hope you agree. Have a go.